Okay, well, it's right at noon, so I'm going to get started. My name is Kate Meredith. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad that you could make it for our webinar with updates on Southwest LRT and Southwest Transit. We're glad you're here. Again, I'm Kate Meredith. I'm Vice President at Commuter Services. Commuter Services serves employers and commuters in 5 cities along the 494 corridor, including Bloomington, Richfield, Edina, Eden Prairie, and Minnetonka. We offer free services and programs to encourage sustainable commuting. Next slide. So before I introduce our speakers and we get going, just a few housekeeping notes. We are recording today's presentation and will provide attendees with a link and a copy of the full slide deck within a week. We are covering a lot of territory in the next hour, so to streamline the process, we will answer all questions at the end of the presentations. You are welcome to submit your questions anytime during the presentations using the Q&A feature. Please refrain from using the chat tool. If you think of questions after the webinar, please email me and we'll get them answered for you. Next slide. With that, I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers, James Makowiak and Matt Fighton. James is a community outreach coordinator for the Southwest LRT project. He has many years of outreach experience, both in the United States and internationally. James has a master's degree in international development from the Joseph Korbel School of International Studies at the University of Denver. Matt Fighton is the Chief Operations Officer for Southwest Transit, where he oversees driver operations, planning, IT, marketing, customer service, and dispatch. Matt has worked at Southwest Transit for over 10 years, where he started as a planning intern after receiving a master's in urban and regional planning from the University of Minnesota's Humphrey School of Public Affairs. Matt is an accredited planner by the American Planning Association and a graduate of the American Public Transit Association's Emerging Leaders Program. And I'm very happy that you're both here today. Matt, I remember when you were an intern. That's how long I've been doing this job. So with that, I am going to hand it over to James for his update on Southwest LRT. Thanks, James.
Right, here we go. Am I unmuted now? All right. Again, thanks, Kate. And again, I just want to thank everybody for making the time to join us this afternoon. I'm going to give you a rather high-level overview of the Green Line Extension Project, which we call, SWLRT for short, and mostly talk about construction. So we've been in construction now we're going into our 3rd full year. And if you have been down in Eden Prairie or in Minnetonka or elsewhere, along our corridor, you've seen all the work that's underway. Our topics today are going to be just a general project overview. Again, the recap for year 1 in 2020 and this 2021 construction overview. We'll talk a little bit about road trail impacts, LRT safety and security, and then some general communication and outreach update information and how you can stay in touch. Just from the most high level point of view, for those of you who are not as familiar with this project, we're extending the current Green Line. The current Green Line is 11 miles from Minneapolis to downtown St. Paul. We're adding another 14.5 miles. So we're looking at nearly 26 miles of LRT in that direction between Eden Prairie and downtown St. Paul. And we're also adding another 16 stations to the roughly 23 stations that are already in operation. So almost 39 stations over almost 26 miles. So it's a very exciting project to be adding to. I'm really excited to be working on this project. It's been a lot of fun. Project overview. Again, we're adding 16 stations. You can see the civil portion of this is mammoth. It's the largest civil infrastructure project in Minnesota history. We've got 29 new bridges. Some of these alone would be exceptionally large projects. 7 existing bridges with modifications like the I-494 bridge extension. We've got some pedestrian tunnels, 2 cut and cover tunnels. One we're working on at Highway 62 and the other in Kenilworth. And then we've got the at-grade crossings. That 127 retaining walls amounts to what I think like 100 miles of retaining walls after all is said and done. And then, of course, what somewhat complicates the construction of our project is that we are building alongside of and will ultimately share 7.5 miles of LRT with freight, with rail freight. And we break the civil contract up into 6 work groups. And just to minimize the construction, it's obviously very complicated and very vast over a very long stretch of space here with a lot of different environments we're working in. And so to break that down into work segments just makes it more manageable for the contractor. 2020 recap. We received our full funding grant from the federal government for half, 50% of our budgeted amount in September 2020, a very exciting milestone. This slide is probably a month or so old. We're 2 months old. We've moved beyond the 35% civil construction. If those of you who are in Eden Prairie, it's nearly 100% of not construction completed, but we're working along 100% probably of that corridor through Eden Prairie. So there's a lot happening here in Eden Prairie and in Minnetonka. So under construction, we've got 8 stations, 23 bridges, and out of the 29, 5 tunnels. And some of those tunnels, of course, are included in our pedestrian tunnels, but we're also working on the 2 large tunnels I mentioned earlier. We got almost 50% of that retaining wall work, and you can see down below a lot of the utility work, which is what we focused on a lot of last year, where you saw a lot of the underground digging and the road disruptions. A lot of that was unrelated to obviously revenue operations or the train above ground, and was related to the kind of work underground that was required in order to start that work. We had to relocate electrical lines and fiber optic lines and all sorts of things, and worked with the public utilities to do that. So in addition, we've got our systems contract that's been given out. We're working currently on operations and maintenance facility modifications. Originally, if those of you who go far back on our project, if you recall, we were going to have our own operations and maintenance facility, but due to budget constraints, that was cut from the project, and we decided instead to modify the existing facility on Franklin. We've got also 11 LRVs, and LRVs is just the acronym for the actual train cars. Each one has 3 cars. We've got 8 delivered. I think we're expecting 30 to 33 total when all is said and done. That was the first contract given out about 1.5 years ago. And those are being made by Siemens in California. All right, just a general overview. I like this slide a lot because it just kind of gives you a high-level perspective of the construction process. I mentioned earlier all the utilities underground that we worked very hard on the first year of construction, a lot of site prep as well. And then we started into the civil work and the track beds, bridges, retaining walls, etc. And we're right in the heart of that right now, finishing up a lot of that in Eden Prairie. Then, of course, that'll be followed throughout those 6 work groups as work is completed by the systems team, and the systems team will put in the catenaries, the electrical system powerhouses, and everything needed in order to run the electrical system. And that will follow the civil construction as I go. And then there'll be a period of time where about 6 months or so where everything will be completed, and we will have to do all of the testing and the security and safety protocols will be put in place before revenue operations. So for each of these segments here, I'm going to go through Eden Prairie and Minnetonka briefly. You're going to have a roll plot, which is just an outline of our alignment. And then you're going to have some pictures of construction, and then some renderings of what the final product will look like. When you look at these roll plots, whenever you see a yellow line, that's a bridge. This, if you see my arrow here, this kind of teal color, a blue color, is kind of a land bridge. But you'll also see green, I believe, which will be the track, just to differentiate the two. And anything in red will be a tunnel. So here, of course, we have SouthWest Station. big construction area going on, and that of course starts immediately leaving the station onto a little small land bridge which connects with Prairie Center Drive Bridge. You can see all the piling required in order to provide the necessary substructure in order to build vertically out of the ground here. Those of you who are familiar with construction in Minnesota know that almost everything requires those piles because of the soil conditions. So you can see these are about 3 foot on center here. So there was a whole host of piles, I think nearly 2,000 piles after all is said and done at the SouthWest station site to complete, the foundation for that. And then of course, looking forward here, currently you can see the new ramp and the different levels of that ramp and the new station here being constructed. And of course, the final rendering, this is the bus loop, and as Matt will talk more about, we are going to be sharing, co-locating with Southwest Transit here. We're very excited about that, where you'll have the option to either take the bus or the train, depending on your destination and what it is that you intend on doing. You can see the new station down here at the other end. And here's a close-up of your options. And this was looking from Highway 212, looking south toward Purgatory Park on the other side. So you can see you can see the train and where those pedestrians are. You can see the bus loop, and you can see a bus leaving here. All right, moving on. That's crossing. You can see the Prairie Center Drive Bridge. That's a nice photo of the bridge, all the different levels and the variables that are required to build that bridge, from the piling to the piers, to the pier caps, to the bridge decking, so on and so forth. And now we're moving ahead toward putting in track at some point in the near future. There's a lot of artwork that we wanted to incorporate in this project. We were unable to due to budget constraints. There's a sort of a group of people under the acronym PLACE who are now working with all 5 cities to find funding and find ways to build out the artwork. So the stations will be representative of the cities and towns that they're in. But here we were still able to include in there, working with the city, some imprints, some prints on our concrete piers. And you can see this is City of Eden Prairies. And these prints change as you go from pier to pier. And they'll be highlighted more, of course, once the painting is completed, which is currently underway. Okay, so Prairie Center Drive, where we just left that bridge, is here to the upper left. And then we go through a corridor behind, if you're familiar, we run a sort of parallel with Singletree Lane or Technology Drive on the other side. We go through this corridor behind Emerson and Costco. And then we have our second station, which is the Eden Prairie Town Center Station area here by the large water tower. And then we continue to run down, which is now, it says Eden Road, which has been rebranded as Town Center Place by Eden Prairie as of last year. Then we continue on to Flying Cloud Drive. So you can see here the second station, Town Center Station, is well underway, with large retaining walls going all the way down that portion of the corridor. And then, of course, what it'll look like when it's done, there'll be a road that will go from Town Center Place and continue on behind Bolero, if you know that area, and then cul-de-sac, and there'll be some street side parking there. And a close-up view. And these are just some photos in the nearby area to show you the before and after, construction and after construction. This is Town Center Place, or what used to be called Eden Road, in front of Redstone. See, we're looking west here, and you can see last year this was under construction and was not available to residents. And this, at the end, late last year, we finished paving it, and we've got a little bit more work to do here in our rail corridor, if you can see my arrow on the right here. Flying Cloud Drive, same situation. This is last year. We were occupying the north side. We had to shift traffic 1 lane in each direction to the southern portion of Flying Cloud between Eden Prairie and Valley View Road. And you can see that was a lot of construction there. This is Viking Drive here in the foreground. And then, of course, the completed project. And this year we're working on phase 3 of 4. We're shifting project. We shifted traffic to the north side. Now we're working on the other side and rehabbing the 494 bridge. So continuing down here, this green line is our grade level rail. This is the Flying Cloud Drive portion we just saw some photos of. Then we cross Valley View Bridge. We go along grade again, along a berm here on the east side of Highway 212, eastbound Highway 212, and then we connect to a 9-mile bridge. You can see this is the sort of the off ramp for the Valley View Bridge. And here we are looking sort of northeast. This is the Valley View Bridge here I pointed out in the foreground here. And we have these nice, cool MSE walls, which are a really interesting form of construction. They're panels, about 6 by 5 foot panels, and they're stacked on top of each other, and it's all infilled on and with dirt in between. And that, of course, is where the train will come down off that bridge. And it's a similar situation here on other bridges throughout the corridor. But we've had a lot of very interesting construction methods. They're not all the same. Each bridge is a little bit different. Here you can see the Valley View Bridge before they started the MSC wall on the northeast corner of that. Okay, and again, 9 Mile Bridge, just a couple photos to show you different phases of construction. You know, getting those bridge beams is quite an exercise in organization here. You can see they're very large, very long, heavy. They come from out of state. And then, of course, you know, close up here of the track work and the concrete work, all the concrete, the carpenters putting the forming. And of course, you can see this is the concrete truck here. And then there's a pour going on. You can see it a little bit in the distance here. They've already completed as they work down. A lot of rebar, a lot of man hours, a lot of resources needed to complete this work. Moving on then, you can see the tail end here, that 9 Mile Bridge I was just showing some photos of. And then we come off on an MSC retaining wall, grade level. We go into Golden Triangle. This is Blue Stem here, for those of you familiar, Flying Cloud Drive here, just to the top of this, on top of the screen, West 70th Street here. So we'll cross at grade. Excuse me a second. We'll cross at grade, and then we will go to the Golden Triangle station. You can see that an older photo under construction. This is the more recent construction. In the distance, you can just see where we're going into the Prairie Center Drive Bridge, which is currently under construction. And then, of course, what the final picture will look like. Again, same, you can see the bridge structure here in the distance. So then moving on, after we leave Golden Triangle, we enter right onto the Highway 212 Shady Oak Bridge. Very large bridge, very long bridge. We're in the process of staging and mobilizing these really large metal beams. Over the next 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, they will go across Highway 212, and we'll have some traffic disruptions associated with that work. Once we land on the west side of southbound Highway 212, we're again at grade level. And then we continue north toward Highway 62 here, and we take a hard westerly turn, and we go to the fourth station, which is City West Station. So again, this is looking east from the west berm of our corridor before we put those large metal beams over Highway 212. We already put some beams coming from Golden Triangle Station up over Shady Oak Road, and those are the similar concrete beams that you saw earlier on the truck on the 9 Mile Bridge. And that is looking sort of west, if you know Whiteboard, or from the Shop HQ iMedia site. This is a photo taken from Optum building, from one of their office spaces, looking down over what was the City West Station. So if you see this large retaining wall here, again, we're coming from the east here. We've rounded this turn. This is Highway 212 here. So we've come around this turn, gone west. This is where the City West Station will eventually be. And you can see, you get down on the ground here, you can see how large those retaining walls are. There's just the very long retaining walls just on the south side of Highway 62. And you can see this one has its own print as well that we worked with Eden Prairie to come up with. And that's what the City West Station will look like. It'll have a very large plaza and parking attached to it. Now, looking also from Optum, and then also down into that south of that construction site on the south side of 62, you can see the south side of our Highway 62 tunnel construction. Last year, if you see my arrow here, on the north side of 62 in the upper right photo, upper left photo rather, here, you can see the north tunnel. We completed that last year. Then we shifted lanes on 62 late last year, and now we are completing the southern portion of that tunnel, our first major tunnel, and you can see the tunnel face here. All those retaining walls I showed you, they're going to eventually run down here into the tunnel as the train leaves City West Station, starts to go underground and go under 62, and then come out here in Opus. And then this is a nice photo because you can also see our corridor here as we are in Minnetonka now. You can see the construction zone here. We've got some retaining walls now coming out of that north tunnel house. And then we are going to cross Bren Road East and Red Circle Drive. And we will then head toward this tiny little dot here, which is our Opus station. And I'll show you a close-up of that. But before I do, once we leave Opus station, we cross Bren Road West, and then we, of course, take a hard northerly turn along Opus Hill, bordering between some of the properties on Feltle Road, if you know the area, and the Claremont apartment buildings, and then we come out near Smetana Road. So again, you can see the North Tunnel House. You can see how large this is before they covered it all over and then shifted built the highway over it again last year. And this is the North Tunnel House. And I left these guys up here. You can see how, just for scale, you can see how small these tractors and these people look compared to the size of this tunnel house. And then, of course, here we go with the red indicating the tunnel going under here. And then we come into Opus, as you saw the photos of along the corridor of this Opus station. And again, as I indicated, a lot of retaining wall work along this area as we cross over Bren Road West, head up towards Smetana. And that's what Opus station is currently looking like. The fifth station along the corridor at this point. Lots of interesting retaining walls here. It almost looks like a castle wall. Here I should mention, this is along Opus Hill. You can see if you look on the bottom photo here, follow my arrow. This is where the train's coming over the corridor and eventually the track in between these two retaining walls here. Claremont would be, if you're familiar, Claremont would be here on the left. All right, that's construction so far. And in terms of looking at our 2021 overview, some of the things I've already talked about, we continue work on SouthWest Station. We've got decking work and the bridges are in an advanced stage, and these from Prairie Center Drive, 494 extension, Valley View 9 Mile, and now we're well underway with the Highway 212 Shady Oak Bridge. We're advancing all the stations in Eden Prairie, and we're finishing all the road work on Flying Cloud Drive. And of course, Golden Triangle Station, and all these retaining walls all the way leading up to the tunnel. And then eventually, at some point this year, they're going to begin installing track. This is just a good general picture to give you an overview here of all the construction going on. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, we're probably working on 100% of the corridor right now in Eden Prairie. All right, roads and trail impacts. No doubt some of you have experienced some of the road impacts and trail impacts already. This season, the I-94 off-ramp to Flying Cloud Drive coming westbound to go to the mall, and to get into Eden Prairie will be closed for the remaining construction season like last year. The on-ramp from Flying Cloud to eastbound will be reopened as we finish phase 3 of work on Flying Cloud Drive, probably sometime later in July. And then, of course, we've got this West 70th Street by Golden Triangle Station. That will be closed similar to last year in order to do track work, and that will remain for probably the rest of the construction season as well, which is roughly through the end of November. And then, of course, we'll have a 4-day, actually it's more a 4-day and a 3-day, total of 7-day closure of Highway 212 to install those large bridge beams over Highway 212 to the east and the west. And then we've got some trail closures. Most of these are listed on an interactive map. I'll show you that slide next. And for those of you trail users, this map here is on our webpage. It's a very useful tool. You can click on any portion of that here and these stations A, B, C, D, and these areas, and information will pop up, give you a better description, a more detailed description of what's going on there and how long perhaps these trail closures will be in place. And then for people who are thinking about safety and security already, those of you who are, obviously you guys are transit users, many of you probably very familiar with the safety and security protocols on the Green Line, and things will be very similar here. People down in Eden Prairie, right? People in Minnetonka who don't maybe have a natural train bias or don't ride the LRT very much, live in the suburbs, are not used to those systems. They're not as familiar as people who are in the urban areas or use them more often. And so we're trying to provide as much information we can. And this is one of their concerns, obviously, something new coming to the area, very new. So we've got, our MTPD staff, about 191 people total, staff 24 hours. We've working closely right now with all 5 cities, with their law enforcement emergency services in order to prepare and get their feedback for how to provide the safety people expect and the security on the line when revenue operations begin. Well, probably a year or two before revenue operations, once we get past or well into the systems work, we'll start launching out into an awareness campaign about safety and security as we communicate what riding the LRT will be like. So while we designed the 4 years, we designed the project, we also included a number of best practices, safety lighting, emergency blue light phones, and the rest that we incorporated into that design. And then, of course, we also have accommodations at the parking areas for the LRT, for the police, station waiting areas to accommodate people, assisted mobility devices, and of course, you might be very interested in designated pedestrian and bike crossings at all gate crossings, LRT tracks. And then lastly, our communications and outreach update. If you haven't been to our webpage at swlrt.org, there's a lot of interesting stuff there, a lot of interesting videos, which I particularly like. We have our virtual tour, which takes you from tip to tail, and it's a hybrid map, and you can get a really good familiarity of where it goes if you're familiar with landmarks in the area. And we also have some moving visuals of what it looked like, say, coming in from Lake Street, SouthWest Station, and several stations, I think, in each city. Plus, we have just a lot of good information. We also have in our construction communications, we've got our weekly updates. If you're not signed up for, that's on our main page. You can put an email address in there, and every week you'll get the latest and greatest construction updates, including detour maps and any information related to ongoing construction for the upcoming week. And then, of course, we have our 24-hour hotline. We get a lot of calls from that. This year, we've got about 45 from Eden Prairie residents. We also get, obviously, hundreds of direct calls from folks and emails. We also have one committee that we're also engaged in regularly with. Each city has what we call a CIW, or Construction Information Work Group. And these are people who were designated by the cities. They either own businesses or they're highly involved in Eden Prairie, and we get together with them once a month, and we just kind of liaison with them to find out how we're doing, if we could do better, if they have any input to help us keep our feet to the ground, our ear to the ground as well, and kind of continue to be as responsive as possible to the residents. And here's my information. It's also posted online, and of course our social media presence here through Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. All right, that's the end of my presentation. Thanks everybody very much. I'm looking forward to answering any questions, clarifying any information at the end of the presentation.
All right, thank you, James. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so again, I'm Matt Fighton, Chief Operations Officer with Southwest Transit. I just want to thank Kate and her team at the Commuter Services for inviting us to this. As Kate said, we go back a long way, and we've been great partners my entire time that I've been with Southwest. And as James was alluding to, there's a lot going on in our service area, especially in Eden Prairie. So I'll be sharing some of our plans as the bus operator for Eden Prairie as it relates to Southwest LRT. Also going to cover our how COVID impacted our services, how we address those impacts, and then how we're moving forward as the pandemic hopefully continues to go the right direction here. So first, I just want to give a quick overview of Southwest Transit, who we are, for those who may not know. We are the public transit provider for the cities of Eden Prairie, Chaska, and Chanhassen. We also operate under contract with the cities of Carver and Victoria for our Southwest Prime service in both communities, as well as in Carver, we operate some fixed route express services from a park and ride in that community. We are governed by a commission consisting of 6 individuals appointed by each member city of the 3 cities, one of which from each city needs to be an elected official. The other member can be appointed or another elected official from that community. And then we have a 7th member on our commission, which is a rider representative. We are a suburban provider that was established by state legislative action in 1983, the year I was born actually, due to the fact that the existing structure was not responsive or meeting the needs of the growing suburbs at the time. So those communities got together and were allowed to essentially form their own transit agencies if they so chose. Cities of Eden Prairie, Chaska, and Chanhassen got together in 1986 and ultimately formed what would become Southwest Transit, with us now being in operations for, I suppose, 35 years. So pre-COVID, we operated over approximately 160 trips per day. We have a fleet of about 75 buses. Our primary routes and services will have brought commuters to downtown Minneapolis and the University of Minnesota, also serving areas such as Southdale, Normandale Community College, and other areas as well. We've been recognized as a national leader in innovation, technology, and transit-oriented development. In fact, where a large bulk of the work in Eden Prairie is occurring on Southwest LRT at Southwest Station. That was one of the first transit-oriented developments really in the nation, incorporating various land uses around transit, and especially in a suburban context. When that station was completed in, I believe, 1999, one of the first transit-oriented developments, you can see it's just evolving today with rail being introduced. We introduced one of the nation's first, what is known as microtransit operations. It's really our local on-demand service that we call Southwest Prime. We started that back in 2015. We believe we were the first public transit operator to provide such a service. In fact, when we started that service, it wasn't even called microtransit. We like to think we somewhat pioneered that service really nationwide. And really what Southwest Prime is it acts very similar to how Uber and Lyft operates on the consumer side of things. We just incorporated a lot of those principles into really kind of your old-fashioned dollar ride system, modernized it so that you can book rides over your phone. You get instant information of where your bus is, how long your pickup time is going to be until the bus shows up, tells you who your driver is, and will notify you when it arrives. And the best part about it is that it will pick you up anywhere within our entire service area. So those three communities plus Carver and Victoria. And I'll talk a little bit more later in this presentation about some of the additions we're doing to that services and some of the enhancements. We are a provider of choice to many special events in our communities. It's a lot of special events are really those who don't ride the bus regularly, how they kind of touch and experience Southwest Transit. Our largest being the State Fair Service. Hopefully we'll be running full operations this year. But if that is the case, we generally haul over 100 million. 100 million. That'd be a little too much. 100,000 rides as part of that event, which accounts for actually 10% of our service. We also provide special event services to sporting events like Twins, Vikings, Gophers football, and we'll also do any concerts once those get started back up again, but those large concerts downtown. We have over $60 million in assets between buses and park and ride systems, or park and rides, transit stations. And pre-COVID, we annually provided about 1.2 million rides. Now, obviously, COVID happened, the pandemic occurred, significantly impacted our service as it did really the entire transit industry throughout the world. Southwest Transit was really hit harder than most, especially as it related to our express services, because we tend to have most of our riders be what we call riders of choice. They generally take our services to downtown Minneapolis to save on parking, just don't want to deal with traffic, things of that nature. But obviously, with everyone working from home, there wasn't as much need for those to travel downtown. So our initial loss of ridership due to the pandemic was actually over 90% on our fixed route services, and on our Southwest Prime service, the initial loss was about 60% due to the pandemic. The Prime service has slowly crept up throughout the pandemic, but unfortunately, the Express service still is really down about 85 to 90%. We're hoping to see that bounce back here in the coming months, especially in the fall once Labor Day comes around. Unfortunately, we did take some drastic actions that we had to. We furloughed or eliminated over 50% of our workforce due to the pandemic. Again, reacting to those significant service reductions, we reduced over 60% of our service. We did receive 2 rounds of funding through federal stimulus funding. There's a chance for a third, which has really kept us afloat and really made up for some of those fare box revenue losses that we experienced due to such a large decline in ridership. And we took numerous safety measures, obviously, to increase customer and employee confidence, things such as a mask mandate. We were requiring masks in our facilities on our buses before it was even required by the FTA, which is still indeed the case. We've implemented both passenger and driver separators throughout our vehicles to create a sense of safety and to slow the spread of air particles throughout our vehicles, and then also installed state-of-the-art ion air purification systems like you'd see on an airplane on all of our vehicles. And believe we were one of the first transit agencies to do that as well. Just a couple of pictures here. You can see on the top one here, this is our East Creek station in Chaska. Regular operations, you wouldn't see any parking spots. That would be completely full. And that's pretty much what our parking rides have looked like during the pandemic. So as you can see, significant impacts to our services. I do want to share just a quick video that we produced. This is somewhat early on in the pandemic, just highlighting some of the actions we took related to the pandemic. Most still apply, some we have moved on from, but just to give everyone an understanding of what we did to address COVID-19.
Hello, I'm Len Simich, CEO of Southwest Transit. I'm speaking today as we deal with one of the most serious pandemics ever to impact the health and welfare of our country, COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus. Once this pandemic is controlled, I want you to be assured Southwest Transit will be there for all your commuting needs. Our current practice of cleaning and disinfecting buses and stations will not decrease because your safety, as well as the safety of our employees, has and always will be our top priority.
Over the past several months, we've learned a vast amount about COVID-19. This has been a great learning experience for all of us. We're hyper-focused on trying to find the latest measures of protection, and we've implemented these procedures into our daily service to maximize the safety and health of our passengers and employees. Updated safety measures are constantly changing and evolving in real time, and we make it our mission to always be a step ahead. Long before our drivers walk through the door of a Southwest Transit bus, we've gone through extreme measures and taken the utmost care to make sure all of our buses and facilities are clean. Our fleet of Southwest Transit buses and prime vehicles are cleaned numerous times daily, including in between runs. At Southwest Transit, we use the latest, most state-of-the-art, professional cordless electrostatic sprayer fogging machines. These machines are designed to make the sanitizing product stick to every surface, ensuring that the bus is safe, clean, and comfortable for all of our passengers. We limit the bus capacity to 20 people or less to enable mass separation in most cases, allowing the rider their own aisle for comfort, safety, and peace of mind. When you enter a Southwest Transit bus, you'll notice a protective curtain for the drivers and our newest implementation of Southwest plexiguards between seats to protect passengers. What you won't see is the time and effort we put into disinfecting and cleaning each bus and prime vehicle to assure your safety. The air you breathe in the vehicles is also cleaned. The onboard air is cleaned by state-of-the-art filters that capture the unhealthy particles. These filters are changed out regularly to ensure the air receives the most effective filtration possible. In addition to upgraded filters, we have begun installing a state-of-the-art ion air purification system. We are one of the first transit agencies to add both row separators and an air purification system on our buses. Let's all remember that our current pandemic is a temporary inconvenience. In the interim, it's good to know that we can travel safely, comfortably, and securely on all of our Southwest Transit vehicles, getting you to work, to play, and to be with the people you love the most. Southwest Transit appreciates you following state and federal safety guidelines. Remember, masks are required inside stations, on the bus, and all of our prime vehicles. And if you forgot yours, we're happy to supply one for you.
All right, so it's just a nice piece that we put together highlighting some of the ways we were addressing the COVID-19 pandemic and still are, and with a lot of those precautions that were noted in that video. Some of our continuing plan to address COVID-19, we are still having our reduced service plan out there. We will add back trips to meet the increased demand, as we believe will be coming over the coming months and probably even years. We're targeting again Labor Day. We believe will be a substantial service increase that we are planning for right now. A lot of what we're hearing from downtown businesses is that's when they're going to really start bringing more and more workers back to that downtown area. University of Minnesota will be in full session in person. So that's right now where we're expecting at least that first wave of riders coming back to our service, and then we'll see hopefully a build after that. That being said, we're going to continue our high level of cleaning, disinfecting the vehicles that you saw on the video. We swap out our vehicles. Obviously, we have some extra vehicles right now as we were not operating our normal services. So what we'll do is we'll take our morning vehicles, make sure that they get swapped out with clean vehicles for the afternoon, because that's a lot of how our services operate. So really every trip is going to have a freshly disinfected, cleaned vehicle. We maintain daily employee health screenings at our facilities. That includes the temperature check as part of that. We continue to make wearing a mask mandatory at our facilities and on our vehicles. Again, this is the federal mandate now. I know that the CDC came out with guidance that those who are vaccinated, a lot of places don't have to wear masks any longer, but that is not true on transit vehicles and in transit stations. That is still required based on federal mandate, and that's currently in place till mid-September. And then we also have been looking throughout the pandemic of what are some work around here that we can really do in-house and perform ourselves where we would normally contract that work out, really with the aim of keeping as many people employed as possible. You can see our picture on the bottom there. And again, this was all with the goal to give our agency the opportunity to meet both our challenges, but also be financially solvent once we're able to hopefully move on past the pandemic soon. And I'm happy to report that we are in a good position to do just that. So with that, the fun part about this presentation is I get to talk about, well, what are we going to do after the pandemic or as we start to come out of COVID? As I mentioned, we're going to be building back express operations as downtown and the U of M reopens. We're going to explore new markets that, in fact, we already are exploring, because one of the great things about the Southwest Prime service is it gives us a lot of flexibility to be able to try new things in a really efficient manner that doesn't create expenditures that aren't needed. So we're looking at suburb service opportunities. We've already, during the pandemic, expanded into Shakopee. We are already expanded along the 494 corridor. That includes the Mall of America, the airport, Normandale, and we'll go really along the entire corridor between Eden Prairie and the Mall of America in a zone that it's really probably a quarter mile or so, maybe a half mile to the north and to the south of the 494 corridor. So think American Boulevard to the south. I think it's West 77th, 78th Street to the north. We'll provide service on our Prime system anywhere along those areas. And you can actually schedule rides as part of that. Generally, our regular Prime service is on demand only, but with this 494 service, you can actually schedule those rides ahead of time. And with the airport service, you can schedule up to 14 days in advance, which is a nice feature to have. We're going to take the opportunity to build back our services smarter. Again, create more efficient and attractive service schedules. You know, unfortunately, the bad part is you have to dismantle everything because of a pandemic, but that does give you the opportunity to say, okay, well, what did we have running before that we can improve upon and make it more attractive to customers, while also being efficient with taxpayer dollars as we're trying to be. We're certainly going to better leverage our Southwest Transit microtransit capabilities. That includes first mile, last mile connections to our express services at our facilities, and certainly, as I'll discuss more, once Southwest Light Rail is in operation, that'll be a big part of our services as well. We're going to be resuming special event services. Again, these services actually will start. The Twin service is actually going to be starting, resuming here on June 8th next month. Due to the restricted amounts of people that can attend the Twins games right now, we are requiring advanced reservations through our web application, the Southwest Transit phone app. We are planning, as I mentioned, for a full state fair. We'll receive some guidance from either the state fair or the state itself. We're thinking in the next month, and we'll adapt our services accordingly. But for now, we're planning for a full state fair service like we have provided in the past. We'll be providing the service to concerts as well, should those occur later in the summer here. And we're currently looking at, like we always do, where can we pilot evolving technologies? One thing we're looking at is mobility as a service, which is really a transit industry term, taking a look at how can we better incorporate these new services, especially the microtransit capabilities, with our fixed route services, with Southwest Light Rail, where the idea is someone has a phone and I'm at point A and I want to get to point B in Minneapolis. Well, give me my entire transit itinerary from the step of my front door to the ending part in downtown Minneapolis. So It would take you on a prime ride, connect you to the proper bus at Southwest Station or Southwest LRT, and then tell you how to make your connections from there. We are looking at implementing some electric vehicles on our service, most likely with we have received a grant from MnDOT to do just that on the Southwest Prime service for a couple of vehicles. And we're currently researching and looking for opportunities for autonomous vehicles as well. It's probably quite a few years out, but we definitely, as that technology evolves, we want to be one of the first transit industries to demonstrate some of the effectiveness that can come from autonomous vehicles. So talking about the Southwest Prime and our Prime MD system expansion that we're eyeing in the near future, we are going to be expanding the Southwest Prime service in general in terms of the hours of service. Starting on June 7th, we're going to be starting an hour earlier. Currently, you can book rides starting at 6:30 a.m. To meet shifting work dynamics and commuter dynamics, we're actually going to be shifting that earlier to 5:30 a.m. And we're currently planning for later evening hours on the service as well in the near future, which certainly will be occurring once Southwest LRT is up and operational as well. Again, I mentioned we expanded into the Shakopee area, covering areas such as Canterbury Park, Valley Fair. We even recently opened up Mystic Lake Casino as part of that service. And then you're also able to make MBTA to the Minnesota Valley Transit connections as that's in their service area, so you can make connections to that service if need be. We are expanding our Southwest Prime MD program. So our Prime MD program is really a non-emergency medical service focused on making sure that people can get to medical appointments both in our service area and around our service area. So think areas like Edina, Methodist Hospital, St. Francis and Shakopee. We'll go to Ridgeview and Waconia, and any of the medical facilities and clinics within our service area, the Prime service area. You can book a ride up to 14 days in advance that will make sure that you get to your doctor's appointment on time. And then since nobody really knows how long their doctor's appointment is going to take when you're done, you just give us a call or you go on the Southwest Prime app. You book the ride on demand like you would any other Southwest Prime ride, and we're generally there within about 15 minutes to come pick you up. It's pretty slick. We've had a lot of positive comments about it. In fact, we just won an award for the service from the City of Eden Prairie's Human Rights and Diversity Commission. We also are looking at, again, the 494 expansion. We have started that already, but we do have a grant that we received, which I'll discuss here. We received a regional solicitation grant from the Met Council and for a 3-year demonstration service for 494 service, really even much larger than what we're providing today with the Southwest Prime service. So this service will be even more frequency, more vehicles available, taking you along that corridor between Eden Prairie, Mall of America, and we actually amended that grant to include the airport. So that will be part of that service. Again, we're looking at Mall of America, Airport, Normandale. We're going to be making connections with the Metro Transit's Orange Line BRT along 35W when that starts and connecting with their connecting bus service. France Avenue area, Lindale Avenue area, among many others across the entire corridor. That will be on weekdays and also on Saturdays. So we're looking forward to getting that up and running, most likely in 2022, once ridership comes back to somewhat pre-pandemic levels. So as it relates to Southwest LRT and Southwest Transit, as James was saying, we are going to be operating in conjunction with Southwest LRT at Southwest Station Eden Prairie. This was a long negotiating process that we believe worked out well for both sides, really. We worked on it for 3.5 years. We reached an agreement in 2017. And what's ultimately going to happen is, so Southwest Transit, our express buses will operate just as they normally would, because we really are a different type of service. We're an express service where the train is more, think of a local service for your standard bus operations, with many more stops between here and downtown, where we're taking express trips to downtown. So our bus will get you there in 20 minutes versus the train, which will be around that 40 minutes, because they're really serving a different function at the end of the day. So you will be able to have that choice as a transit customer. You know, maybe you want to get to downtown Minneapolis as fast as possible, you'll probably take our bus. If it's a snowy day and you don't want to deal with traffic, you'll probably take the train. You've got that option. So we think it really works pretty well in harmony at that station. We also are going to be leveraging the train a lot in our future service plans. We are going to be that primary first mile, last mile connection to the Southwest LRT stations within Eden Prairie, we'll be able to reallocate a lot of our resources that we're currently spending on, say, midday trips, evening trips, reverse commute trips out to our service area, that we can actually take those funds, let the train handle a lot of that traffic, and then we can reinvest those funds to ensure that that first mile, last mile connectivity both occurs in the Eden Prairie area, as well as we can expand those hours as the train will be operating much later than we're able to operate today, and also on the weekends. So really it's expanding transit accessibility significantly, and we believe that's always a positive. We also are happy that we received another regional solicitation grant award in 2018 for a 3-year demonstration service for what is called the Mobility Hub at the Southwest Station site, which is going to be timed up with the start of operations with Southwest LRT. And really what this is it focused on providing a high level of that first mile, last mile multimodal connectivity at Southwest Station to connect with our buses at Southwest LRT. So that grant consists of additional funding for vehicles and service for the Southwest Prime service. We have funding for e-bikes and e-scooters, if that's still a thing. We have funding for 5 car sharing vehicles, and then any other mobility solutions that may pop up between now and then. That's something we'll look to use these grant dollars for once that's available. We are looking at an autonomous vehicle demonstration possibility in the Golden Triangle area. Again, the Golden Triangle we think is a great area to really pilot this type of demonstration service, because as you can see in this map, while LRT is going to be providing a lot more access to the Golden Triangle, it's still a large area. It's got over 9.5 million square feet of office, 20,000 jobs. I know the city of Eden Prairie is working on increasing pedestrian accessibility throughout this area, but the reality is we still need to have that circulator type movement, providing that first mile, last mile connection. And you can see here a couple of route options within the Golden Triangle area that we believe would be a great area to demonstrate some autonomous vehicle technologies. Now, when I say autonomous, we still would have a operator in the vehicle to ensure driver or vehicle safety, passenger safety. So there still would be drivers. We're still quite a long ways away from that. But the city of Eden Prairie has been highly supportive of this concept. We are working with MnDOT. We're having discussions with the FTA and multiple autonomous vehicle vendors, which we believe this type of service will hopefully be lining up to start when Southwest LRT is up and operating. So we're excited about that. And then finally, I mentioned we received some grants from, a grant from the Minnesota Department of Transportation to pilot some electric vehicles on the Southwest Prime service. As part of that grant application, we actually propose Teslas as part of the Southwest Prime service. So there's a very good chance that you'll be seeing a couple of Tesla vehicles, the larger vehicles, operating as part of our Southwest Prime service. They have the range that we need for that type of service. They also have some autonomous technologies that we'd like to pilot as part of that service. So it could just be one more incentive for someone to try out Southwest Prime. You can ride around in a brand new Tesla. We think that's pretty cool. And what's even cooler about it is, even for such a nice vehicle, that's ultimately going to save us between $10,000 and $15,000 a year. It's ultimately going to pay for itself over the life of the vehicle. So we're very excited to demonstrate that in conjunction with MnDOT, help really kind of studying the impacts of that on our services. So with that, just my contact information here. Feel free to reach out to me via email, phone call. I'm always happy to give some presentations as to what we're up to at Southwest Transit. And again, I want to thank Kate and the Commuter Services for allowing me to be here. So thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much, Matt and James, for your great updates. Commuter Services thought it was a good time as construction season is really ramping up to get, you know, a snapshot of where Southwest LRT is and where they're going, and you know, we learned of all the great service updates and things that are in the works at Southwest Transit. So we were very happy to bring these important updates to our audiences. So thanks again to James and Matt. So I just wanted to go through a couple of our resources for employers and commuters and tell you about a new thing that we just launched. So employer resources, we partner with Southwest LRT, and we can put anyone who's interested on the list to receive email updates about the Southwest LRT project. So that would come directly from Commuter Services. You can reach out to me about that if you're interested. We just heard from MnDOT that afternoon traffic levels are almost at pre-pandemic levels, and many companies have not yet brought staff back to the workplace. As Matt mentioned, we're hearing from a lot of companies that they're looking at after Labor Day or into September, where they really bring back their workforce. So we want to help employers now with commuting programs guidance as part of their return to work planning. And I know companies are doing a lot of planning as far as telework and hybrid and safety, and we want to be part of that discussion. So please reach out to Commuter Services as you are looking at your return to work planning. Bus Pass programs are something that we have promoted for many years. Metro Pass is an unlimited ride, deeply discounted bus pass that's a valued employee benefit. We help employers enroll in the program and provide ongoing promotional assistance. We also have a wealth of materials to help establish or formalize the telework program, and we just launched a new website, and I'll tell you more about that in a coming slide. We set up preferential carpool and van pool parking for employers and manage the program so that you know how many employees are involved. And we offer a free outdoor bike rack. We find that having a bike rack on site is an essential step in encouraging employees who want to bike to work, and it offers a secure place to park their bike. We offer a starter outdoor rack to any company in the Twin Cities who's willing to promote sustainable commuting to their workforce. We also provide customized articles about commuting programs and resources for new hire packets, e-blast, newsletter articles. So we can be a resource for that as well. Next slide. Okay, so our commuter resources include, we partner with Southwest Transit as well as Metro Transit and other providers to provide a customized transit itinerary. And we also have 2 free ride passes as part of the packet. So we can let commuters know their step-by-step trip from getting from home to work, where the transfers are, how long the trip takes, and we mail that packet to their home address. We also let commuters know about the Transit Assistance Program, or TAP. It is a program for lower income residents, and it offers $1 rides on all transit. So we have information about that, and we have materials in many different languages about that program. We also provide carpool, vanpool matching and tips. So we've heard from commuters that they may not be ready to share the ride right when they get back to the work site, but as they get more comfortable, we can help find people from their home area who have a similar route to work. And we also provide tips on how to make it a successful carpool arrangement. We have a wealth of bike to work materials, as well as trail construction updates. We have maps, safety tips, bike laws, how to put your bike on the bus and train instructions. We also have a list of trail construction, and we update that regularly, so you can add yourself to the list, and we will email you those construction updates. And it's not just, as James talked about, the Southwest LRT trails and tours. It includes the whole area of our 5 cities, so we can provide that for commuters. We have try it campaigns throughout the year. So it's a fun way to encourage commuters to just try something other than driving alone to work, and they can win some cool prizes. And we help employers promote those campaigns as well. We have a monthly commuter newsletter chock full of all kinds of information about commuter programs, what's new, transit, biking news, and that comes out at the beginning of the month. So we are happy to add you to the list, and you can sign up on our homepage on our website at www.494corridor.org. And finally, the Guaranteed Ride Home program is a free program for any commuter who is not driving alone 3 days a week. And you sign up, it's free, it's like an insurance policy. It provides $100 up to in reimbursement for a taxi or any kind of shared ride service or transit to get home in those situations where you don't have a reliable way of getting home. So that's a great program and it's free to sign up. Next slide. So I mentioned about our telework resources for employers as well as for commuters. We just launched the new Twin Cities Telework website at www.tctelework.com. We're very excited about this new website. It's a work in progress, but it has a lot of great resources now for employers where you can download immediately the different resources like sample telework policies and best practices guidance. We have tips for being a successful teleworker for commuters. So check out that new website and we'll be adding to it. You can also sign up to receive our Twin Cities Telework newsletter, which is forthcoming. Next slide. And that is how you reach me, my email, phone number, and our website. So that is what I have, and now we'll just move on to questions. And we'll give people a little bit of time. If you want to type in a question, please do so. Here we go. And my coworker, Michelle Leonard, is going to take on any of those. I don't see any yet, but we'll just give a few minutes for that. Okay. I'm not seeing questions. All right, so I think we're just going to end the webinar. So again, thanks everyone for attending today. Again, thanks our presenters, James Makowiak and Matt Fighton, for all your great updates. We really appreciate it. This recording of the presentation will be on our website, our commuter services website, as well as the slide deck, so you can download those. And we will send those out to every attendee as well within a week. So have a great day. You got 15 minutes back of your time for today, and have a great weekend. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.